You're welcome to English 211, Forms of Literature 1, Prose Fiction. We are now in study session 2, Features and Functions of Prose Fiction. Prose fiction has some features which distinguish it from other genres of literature. It also has some functions which makes it a quintessential genre of literature. Prose fiction is a narrative work which deals with events that are imaginative rather than factual. It is a moment-by-moment narration of events that are not verifiable. Among its numerous functions are teaching morals, entertainment, cultural propagation, and the like. In this study session, we will highlight, discuss, and exemplify some of the fundamental features and functions of prose fiction. When you have studied this session, you should be able to explain the concept of prose fiction, highlight the features of prose fiction, and illustrate with apt textual samples. You should also be able to discuss the functions of prose fiction. Explaining prose fiction. Prose fiction is a form of any narrative or informative work that deals in part or in whole with information or events that are not factual, but rather imaginary, invented by the author. Although fiction describes a major branch of literary work, it may also refer to theatrical, cinematic, and musical work. Fiction contrasts with non-fiction, which deals exclusively with factual events, such as biographies, autobiographies, and histories. Fiction also refers to narrated stories that are drawn from the imagination or are an imaginative reworking of actual experiences. Incidents and details in a work of fiction can originate in fact, history, or everyday life, but the characters and events as a whole are primarily invented or altered in the author's imagination. Imaginative fiction, like movies, varies widely in type, from fast-paced adventures that focus on action to stories that examine characters and ideas in depth. They can be told at great length, such as novels and epics, or more briefly, such as novellas and short stories. As a prose fictional work, a short story is a relatively brief fictional narrative in prose that often focuses on the essential aspect of a character, instead of showing character development over time the way a novel can. It is characterized by careful, deliberate craftsmanship in handling of plot, characterization, and point of view. Short stories may explore the complexities of life and people. They also lead us to interact imaginatively with significant human issues. They offer us an opportunity to expand our understanding of ourselves, others, and the multiple cultures we find ourselves living within. You should also know that writers of short stories are widely respected by other writers, scholars, and general readers for the way they handle the techniques of fiction, for their insights into people, their values, their experiences, and their cultures. What are your own stories? What books and movies do you love? What television shows do you follow? The stories that you own may incline towards realism or science fiction, or even romance. Each of us has different individual tastes. Almost all of us, however, are drawn towards stories of some sort. We begin to think about the characters as if they are real, and we care about what happens to them. Why do we begin to sympathize deeply with a grieving mother or delight in the achievements of a college sophomore, neither of whom actually exist? The answer to these questions must start with the impressive power of imagination, with the way our imaginations respond to the imaginative creations of excellent writers. A story, considered broadly, is any account of a related series of events in sequential order, usually chronological order. Stories did not start out as something to be read. Long before people read stories or watched them being acted out in plays, they listened to stories being told or sung. From ancient times, people gathered around fires in the evening for warmth and safety. They told stories to each other. Although we no longer need campfires for warmth and protection, the storytelling tradition of stories around a campfire continues wherever people gather for companionship. Generation after generation of children around the world have said to parents, "Tell me a story." Therefore, story, in this broad sense, includes events that are true or made up. An account of the invading of Normandy in World War II, the planning for the prom during your junior year in high school, or the landing of three-headed cyborgs in an Iowa cornfield. The account can be narrated, that is told by a storyteller, or dramatized, acted out in drama. It can also be told in prose or verse. What are the functions of fiction? Most important, perhaps, is the way fiction can take us outside of ourselves and through our imaginations enable us to enter other lives, other selves, places and cultures, feelings and experiences. All of us live limited lives. We want to see more, expand our range of experiences, and meet people whose lives are different from our own. A story enables us, without leaving our chairs, to escape our boundaries and broaden our understanding and vision. Author and literary critic C.S. Lewis explains the appeal of a story by saying, "We seek an enlargement of our being. We want to be more than ourselves. We want to see with other eyes, to imagine with other imaginations, to feel with other hearts, as well as with our own." Fiction can do that. A story can mirror our own world, take us to a world that is not part of our daily experience, or create a world entirely new to us. To read fiction is to enter a place where you both disappear and find yourself. A place where, when you put the book down and look up, you feel even more yourself than you did before reading. You have likely heard someone say, "Fiction? I don't read fiction. I want to read what is true." Fiction is not fact. It may contain facts, but it is still fiction. A literary scholar and a historian who were on a panel together were asked the difference between the two disciplines. The historian spoke about how important it was to get the facts correct in his work. The literary scholar then replied, "Yes, you deal with facts. I deal with truth." What was the literary scholar implying? Not that the historian wasn't searching for the truth within the facts, but that fiction is the embodiment of truth. At times, factual truth, but always, if it is a fine work of fiction, the kind of truth that exists within, around, or beyond fact. This is a different kind of truth, the kind of truth that needs story to contain it. In considering the purposes which works of fiction are supposed to fill, it will be of interest and value to you to note what some of the more prominent writers have said with regard to their reasons for practicing their arts. The more selfishly personal motives may be passed over quickly. Money and fame have been desired and welcomed by most authors, as by most men, but they help us little to an understanding of the purpose of literature. Since the motives of men are more usually complex than simple, it is the safe assumption that even those who have frankly written for a living or who have acknowledged the lure of ambition have had other things in view as well and have not found profit or honor incompatible with deeper and more altruistic aims. Let us now review the functions of prose fiction according to some scholars. Functions of prose fiction. According to Richardson, one of the functions of prose fiction is that of this, the most commonly claimed is the moral improvement of the reader. No one has been more explicit about this than Richardson, whose preface to Pamela has explained better. In a similar vein, his Clarissa Holloway is proposed as an exemplar to her sex and is made as perfect as is consistent with human frailty, her faults being put in chiefly lest there should be nothing for the divine grace and a purified state to do. According to Fielding, though less verbose, is no less explicit. He claims for Tom Jones that to recommend goodness and innocence hath been my sincere endeavor in this history, and that he has endeavored to laugh mankind out of their favorite follies and vices. Of Amelia, he says, the following book is sincerely designed to promote the cause of virtue. The frequent satirical tone of Thackeray, as well as the nature of his analysis of human motive, testifies to his sharing Fielding's desire to drive men out of their follies and vices by ridicule and contempt. Dickens characteristically combines the improvement of the individual with the reform of institutions. Scott's confession, "I write for general amusement," sounds more than humble. Yet he frequently repeats it. He hopes to relieve anxiety of mind, to unwrinkle a brow bent with the furrows of daily toil. At times, Scott approaches the moral aim of his more serious brethren by saying to fill the place of bad thoughts and suggest better, to induce an idler to study the history of his country. In this study session, we listed and discussed some of the fundamental features of prose fiction. We established the fact that it is a narrated art that is imaginative. That is, it is moment-by-moment narration of events that are not verifiable. We have also concluded that prose fiction performs some functions which include the teaching of morals, entertainment, cultural propagation, language teaching, historical function, ethical function, and the rest. We have now come to the end of study session 2.